Okay. If this is one of my last videos, this one is probably one of the most important to understand. I'm holding it together and I'm praying right now. Praying for guidance, and I'm praying Jesus and God to guide these crazy, very screwed up people that I am going to need to help me because that is the way the system is designed to work. So, I am a disabled person that can't really write due to shakes and nobody can read it. So if it's a really long paper with a time limit on it, I can try it, but usually it doesn't work. Now we have known this, and this is why I am applying for disability. I have had a neurological disorder very clearly for 25 years. Now they have called this neurological disorder. In my original disability case, the doctors, when I lived in Westford, were calling it a coordination issue. They were putting me in physical therapy. They were putting me in speech therapy because all of a sudden I had a lot more difficult speaking. Still to this day, when my neurological disorder gets turned up, I cannot form proper words or sentences even though I am thinking that I want to. The signal goes to my tongue to say the word the, but comes out instead because I can't move my tongue properly. Also, the same thing happens to my leg when this gets turned up. I can't move my legs. This is why I don't drive. Somebody like me should not be driving. But according to my father and the Department of Health and Human Services and the people I grew up with, that's okay. Somebody who can't keep their arms and legs still and would crash a car into another car and can't keep a car straight, can't keep his arms straight, can't keep his legs straight. He's bumping in the furniture, he's bumping his wrist in the doorknobs all the time. That person does not need any medical care for that. That person can drive and get himself killed. All he needs is a bunch of Seroquel, Thorazine, Seroquel, Trazodone, Xanax, Ritalin. These are the meds that will treat this, is what my mother and father put down. Because later, my mother started using what she already understood was a severe medical illness after she already wiped the slate with Texas and New Mexico and Maine. Yes, she trafficked me to try to wipe away her crimes, and it worked. Still to this day, when I go to the doctors, they get me hurt. Why? Because my mother, who passed away in 2011, decided when we came back to Massachusetts after she wiped out, she would twist things and use my disabilities to try to get me pills that then she could take the Xanax and the Vicodin she took. Yes, I was prescribed Vicodin because I got so severe headaches from the medications my mother was fucking around with my body. Not only that, the original illness I'm talking about was first started. I first started to feel it during an overdose when I lost my eyesight. I lost the ability to talk because my tongue went numb completely. I could not see my hands in front of my face. Everything was that blurry. I could not feel the carpet under my hands. When I tried to crawl over to my father, my breathing slowed down and I passed out. When I woke up, my nervous system was never the same. This, I have never received any proper medical treatment for it. The symptoms of this, like the coordination issues, the bumping in the furniture, my mother treated with other weird treatments, like ballet. Or when I was bumping in the furniture or doorknobs, my mother wanted to treat it with a psychiatrist and she wanted to call it self harming. Me and my father wouldn't allow that. She wanted to make up a story that me bumping in the furniture and my wrist bumping in the doorknobs when I walk around the house because I get a spasm, she wants to call that self harming at the psychiatrist. But nobody would let her do that, but she tried it anyways over the phone. Yes, my mother made up a lie about me, and even though everybody told her it was not true, she spread it to the doctors. Still to this day, when I go to the doctors, these lies cause me to get hurt and cause me to have to be forced to take medication that gets in the way. Like I had some sleeping problems. Now that's because my mother drugged me so severely at bedtime during my whole childhood. At the age of 5, through pretty much my whole entire life, my mother was giving me something sedative at night, every single night, at about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, almost every single night. I was given a severely sedative medication. And from the age of 5 to 7, when we were in Westford, it was multiple, lots of them, dangerous stuff, really dangerous stuff with really dangerous side effects. Not only that, my mother was mixing her own meds and what she had in her medicine cabinet without even approving it with doctors. And that's how the overdose and the full bottle of Epicac punishment came into this, because my mother thought it was okay to give extra medication to me because I was just an orphan from an orphanage. I was just a foster kid, so she can drug me all she wants. She's okay. She's a rich, wealthy mother, and her husband is a very wealthy businessman with multiple houses and multiple cars. So if they want to drug a child to make him quiet, they're allowed to do so, even if those drugs are not approved by any doctor. So she did this. Then she moved me to Texas, and they became over-the-counter drugs. Then, like vitamins and Benadryl. Sometimes she would try to get the doctors in Texas to go along with stuff, but they wouldn't. That she would try to get the teachers to do whatever she wanted, but the teachers said, no, your son's doing good, your son's doing good, and I was. I mean, it was really hard because I was behind thanks to my mother. Thanks to my mother having me held back. Yes, my mother screamed at the teacher, yelled and yelled and yelled and demanded that in first grade I be held back, even though the teacher said multiple times that I am ready for second grade and I am not at the bottom of the class. I'm at the head of the class, not the max head. I'm not number one, not number two, not number three, nothing like that, but I'm like number six, number seven in the class. That's pretty damn good of a class of 20 or whatever it was. So I got the move to second grade. But I had an adopted mother that was evil, manipulating, and had a very fucked up narrative to push. So she went in there and screamed at my first grade teacher to hold me back. Screamed and did this for a month. Did this for a month, demanded it no matter how many no's my mother got. She went right back in screaming that I get held back because she knows best, because she just adopted me. She's had me for 2 years. She's given me an overdose. She's given me a full bottle of Epicac for a punishment. She knows best. She knows how to take care of me best. So the teacher says, okay, we'll hold them back for you. Then she moves me around the country right after that, puts me in ballet, tap dancing, all these things that try to take people's attention off of what really happened. Because if I'm talking about how people are calling me gay in school, if I'm talking about all this weird stuff, I might not put together what's really going on. So this continued to happen all the way to my adulthood. At the age of 19, I started to figure out what was going on, but I was totally brainwashed. I was totally wiped out, brainwashed into thinking I needed to take night meds because the doctor, when I told them the side effects, when I started to tell doctors what was going on, they doubled the dosage and I was getting heart palpitations. I was vomiting some mornings. I was waking up with severe hangover headaches, all from the medication I was taking as prescribed. This was during my whole life, from the age of 5 years old all the way on to the age of 20. I was waking up with so many side effects. Now, the day I stopped drugging myself on the word of a psychiatrist and on the word of my mother and father, things got so much better for me. Oh my God, my mind cleared up. I was no longer ever depressed. I no longer went down. I no longer had that sinking fear feeling ever again. I no longer had twisted thoughts. I know I could control my impulses. Everything got better. And I figured out from watching other people that these medications are fucked up. Like, for instance, you know what they call on the streets Klonopins and Xanax? Karate pins and theft pins. You know why? Because 90% of people who abuse or take a regular dose of any benzo have impulse control issues when it comes to anger, theft, or emotions. Yes, there's a pill out there called Xanax and Klonopins and Xanax and Ativan, where if you take 1 to 5 milligrams, anywhere in between that milligram, you will have your impulse control altered. And this is visible in just about every single person that's ever been on a benzo. I have watched it with at least 40 different benzo takers because I was living on the streets, I lived in orphanages, and I lived around people who took medication, but not like me. They took one or two. They took Xanax and Ritalin, or they took one sleep med and one Ritalin, or they took one thing for their bladder, or they took one thing for their heart, or they took one thing for schizophrenia. These kids took one or two pills mostly. I was on 8 at some point. I know. I think they even had me at 10. They like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 2 at night, and there was like 4 or 5 at night. Oh, sorry, 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and a bunch at night. That was the most I was ever on. But on common, I was usually on 2 in the morning, 1 to 2 in the afternoon, and 3 at night. Most of my life, that's how many meds I took. And most of them were not needed, and my mother was adding and subtracting as she found fit without doctors being consented, without talking to me, without preparing me for the side effects, without even talking or spreading the side effects to the doctor. When I was having severe, life-threatening side effects, my mother, instead of looking into it, she decided to pop my Vicodin in the closet. Yes, this was not somebody who was capable of taking care of a child. She damaged my body. Now I'm an adult, and I worked during COVID, and they took away my ability to get any benefits when I caught the flu. Yes, when COVID came, I caught the flu. I was working 50 hours while injured, while disabled, while trying to collect Social Security. Now, I couldn't really work 50 hours. I can't do that. I'm making myself hurt. I'm trying to put on a fake smile while I cry. I have infections in my throat and teeth. I have an infection in my chest. Then I catch the flu, then COVID. And during all this, everybody else is dropping out, going home to collect COVID benefits. Meanwhile, I tried to do that and they told me no because I couldn't get down there, because I was too disabled to get the transportation. And when they mailed the letter, I filled it out and sent it back, and they said I would have to come down, and I tried to come down, and it did not work. It is way too far. Just like the ID, I had to walk. So I did. I went down to the office. It did not work. They told me I was not qualified. So first I struggled to get down there. Then when I finally get down there to see what the problem is, they tell me I'm not qualified, even though I got the COVID flu. I got a mask on. I'm at the fucking hospital. I have every symptom. I'm reading a fever. I'm vomiting. I got a runny nose in front of the person. I'm pale. You can see all the moisture coming down my eyes. I'm shaky. I'm losing weight, and they don't care. So they put me to work for the town, and I make money for the town. I keep those gas trucks filled up because I was an essential service worker. I worked at a gas station. I caught COVID, and I tried to go out of work to be safe for everybody, but nobody would. I tried to get notes from the doctor, but my boss told me those notes only gave me a couple days, and then I had to be back to work. I talked to the doctor. That's all they wrote. They wrote me, they didn't say I could come out permanently until better. They didn't tell me, and how was I going to pay the bills? I asked them that. They said they didn't know. They said, oh, no, you need a special type of note, and we're not willing to write that. Even though you're sick, we're not doing this COVID shit. So I was refused benefits because the doctor didn't want to go along with the program that the federal government was trying to put forward. So I had to work with COVID while having flu symptoms, thanks to my doctor sucking, the emergency room sucking, and the agency where I was supposed to get those benefits didn't have enough paperwork from the doctors and wasted many, many trips while I was sick. And that's not even the tip of the iceberg. I had a seizure on the side of the road. Now, this was during the infections in my mouth, because the infections and the cold together was too much for my nervous system while trying to walk home from work. And I had a seizure in a car, then ran over my hair. Now, that could have split my head open like a blueberry. Not only that, I'm unconscious waking up to this. I am now don't know how long cars have been running over my hair or been so close to me. If I was there for another minute, maybe a car goes on the line and pops my head. So I try to move over and like roll, but I seize and roll over and seize into a gravel slash grass pit that's a ditch that's disgusting. At this point, I try to sit up, but I'm shaking and I'm seizing and I can't quite walk. So I have to sit there in a damn ditch for a half an hour to an hour before I can crawl and get my body kind of moving to get the last bit home. I was like 2/3 of the home. It wasn't that much. There was one football field left. So all I had to do was crawl on my hands and knees, stand up and fall, stand up and fall, stand up and squat, stand up, fall, squat, crawl, and I'm home. And when I got finally home, I didn't even go all the way home. I stayed downstairs for another hour. Once when I was near the building, that was good enough. Then I just relaxed near the building for an hour. Then somebody helped me upstairs that day. Then I talked about going to the emergency room. I did. The emergency room says they need to see it. So if they need to see it, then let's do that. During my next seizure, I called the emergency room, and guess what they did? They gave me 2 injections of Ativan so that when I got to the hospital, the shakes are gone. I'm doing much better because now it's been an hour and a half or an hour since I've arrived. And the Ativan, 2 of them, oh yeah, that's pretty good shit. And now I'm fucked. So because the doctor can't see it again. So we need to get there right away, and we need to be seizing in front of the doctor, which means no Ativan and no time to waste. But they're not doing this. So I'm left to suffer in the woods, on the side of the road, on the way into work, on the way to Social Security, on the way to get cash benefits, on the way to meet Tammy. Then Tammy, here's another. Now, so the Department of Health and Human Services of Rochester is going to make me die. They're going to make me go after the edge because I'm going to be staying in Rochester until I have Social Security or a diagnosis, no matter what. Now, if they throw me out of my housing, I cannot live in a shelter thanks to me still not having paperwork on my disabilities. Without proper paperwork, when I get hurt, they count it as being a game, or they don't know what's going on, or they think I'm being stubborn. So until we know more about what the fuck is going on with the fact that I can't move my legs sometimes, I fall down, I'm weak, I'm skinny. On top of that, I have some type of neurological disorder. On top of this, it hurts on every part of my body. On top of this, my roommate has mold problems in here growing inside of him. Now I got mold problems growing inside of me for sure, but the doctors don't want to deal with it, except for Dave's doctors in Massachusetts are dealing with it. So they're finding all these different answers, but my doctors haven't found shit. So, the Department of Health and Human Services, I try to get either food stamps, cash benefits, anything, help or help filling out paperwork. So first they help me, then they drop as soon as they talk to my father, then they don't help me at all, then they play the phone tag game. Then I say, well, who's my worker? Because I need to be filling out paperwork with the Department of Health and Human Services. So, who am I talking to? They tell me first a Tammy. No, first Christine. Then it's a Tammy. No, first, all right, Beth. Beth was the first one. But Beth drops out the case right after talking to my parents. Now she thinks I'm full of shit because she talked to my father, who wants to avoid responsibility, and he can keep it calm and just say he's a loser. He has no money. He tells stories. We have mental records that I created during childhood with my second wife. I can show you records of all the institutions and all the pills we gave him against his will. I can show you all the stuff that my mother did to him and damaged his body with all these drugs. I can show you all that. And then he'll withhold that stuff from me. Yes, my father will say he doesn't remember any of what happened during my childhood, and then he'll try to use it against me when it helps him have his own happiness, his profits, whatever. Avoid responsibility, avoid having a black mark on his family name, all that. So whenever they want my family's information, I'm going to have to say they're dead because that's what people are telling me to do. But I'm not doing that. I'm supposed to have trust in people. So I gave my father's phone number to the Department of Health and Human Services with a warning that this might go very long. They're going to lie about me. They're going to call me crazy. They're going to say I make up stories and this is a fantasy. But I guarantee you, on the holy Jesus Christ, on my internal soul, that my mother did cripple me, and my father and my mother both allowed me to take medications, extra medications, my mother's medications. She forced medications on me. She gave me extra medications. She gave me a full bottle or extra Epicac that should never be given to a child. She also brainwashed me in inappropriate ways. I can guarantee you that my mother made up stories to the Department of Health and Human Services, lied to manipulate to try to act like I'm some mental illness. What's crazy about what I'm talking about is that what my mother did to me is crazy. I'm not crazy. If you're in war and you get kidnapped and tortured by the enemy and they put a rat on your stomach and take a blowtorch on that rat and that rat starts digging on you, but then the Americans barge in and they save you, they shoot all the Nazis. They shoot all the Nazis, right? And you're still on the ground with a rat on your stomach and a metal can on your stomach with scratches. And the American comes over, kicks that barrel over, takes that rat, chops off the head of the rat, picks you up off the ground and says, "Sir, we're sorry this happened to you." Does that make that American who got tortured crazy because somebody did something crazy to him? No. He might have PTSD. He might have some issues, but first, he has to have acknowledged that he went to war and he was tortured. Once when he goes back to America, he'll go to the doctors. He'll say, "I was in war. See the scar on my stomach? Yep, I have PTSD." They put it on his file. They write why he has PTSD. It says tortured with rat and during war. It would say that under his illnesses, and then he can move on. But see, in my case, I had bad stuff happen to me, and instead of me being able to move on, I have to live in my mother's fantasy. Literally, the person who did the most damage to my body gets to pick how I live. So I get to live in the woods dying for the rest of my life because that's what my mother and father picked for me. Yes, what did my mother and father pick for a future for me? To die in the woods. That was always my mother's plan. When I asked about college, it was always dodged. When I asked about the free money that she talked about college, it was always dodged. When I asked about housing and how I was going to get housing so I could go to further school, the question was, "Don't worry about housing, you're not getting one." I mean, God damn it. No matter what I did, the plan was always to give me pills and get me ready for Social Security. That was always my mother's and father's plan from day one. My mother was drugging me the minute I met her. She was messing around with pills. During my adoption, she literally gave me pills before we got in the car. I passed out in the car because the pills became so strong that I was getting nauseous, dizzy, dizzy and passed out. Then she brought me in this place, this what she told me how to do with the court and how to do with my adoption, where there was wooden benches and there was some judge or some people around that looked like lawyers or something. Then I got to the wooden bench and passed out on the wooden bench. Then my mother and father said, "Well, you couldn't stay awake?" Well, my father or somebody else. No, I'm on pills. My mother gave a child pills, and that's going to make you tired. Okay, what else happens? Then she drags me, carries me out of that room, says, "You got to walk." First, she carries me, but I'm too heavy. So then she says, "I got to walk." But I'm kind of like getting dragged because I'm so drowsy. Then we get to the car and I fall right back to sleep in the car. They ask if I'm happy to be adopted. We're going to a party. I say yes, very tiredly, and then I lay down. Then they start bringing me to an adoption party, which I'm still on pills. It's only been an hour or two of full blown pill effect. So at this point, everybody starts coming up to me at my adoption party asking me, "Hey, aren't you happy to be adopted? Why do you look so sad? Why do you look so tired? Why do you look so sad? Why do you look depressed? Why do you look sad? Why do you look depressed? Why do you look sad? Aren't you happy to be in this family?" Meanwhile, they're going up to my mother saying, and my mother's saying, "He has depression. He has depression, I think. I think he has depression. I think he has depression. I think he has depression." Not telling them that just 2 hours prior, she gave me a large dose of a sedative. Either Benadryl, opiates, maybe even one of the regular sedatives, night meds, whatever the hell it was. It knocked me on my ass. It was like a perk 30, and that's really what it felt like. It felt like I was all doped up. Anyways, so I'm doped up for my own adoption party, all fucked up. I'm wanting to find a spot on the floor to lay down. Eventually, somebody gets me a chair because they know I'm tired, and I keep on saying, "I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired. I want to sleep, I'm tired," because I'm only age 7 years old. My mother just snuck some pills. She's allowed to give me pills. Everybody knows my mother's giving me pills. Nobody cares that my mother's giving me pills. Now, this happens for year after year after year after year. More fucked up. An African American is choking me on a couch in New Mexico. You got me transitioning to El Paso, Texas, to a new school. My mother acting unstable here and there. You got Maine, where I get no education. New Mexico, no education. You got the pills everywhere. You got her stuffing me full of pills. On top of this, she's giving me over-the-counter medications like Epicac, like it's going out of style. "Oh, you ate a mushroom? Okay, let's give you a full bottle because you need extra as a punishment." No, we're not going to measure it out. That stuff was so fucking thick. I'm not kidding you. I don't know if you ever tried to drink pure Epicac before. It is fucking thick. It was like that. Okay, you ever seen epoxy? You ever seen clear epoxy? The kind of liquidy epoxy, but not quite a liquid. It starts out a liquid and gets thicker as it dries. That's what Epicac that I drank was like. It was like a thin epoxy. It was pourable, but clear and gross looking, but it was thick. If you try to drink straight up Epicac, it is thick, disgusting. And my mother gave me extra as a punishment, and she emptied that bottle out. She didn't take a spoon. She wasn't measuring. Maybe she measured in front of my father in another room with a spoon, but when she came to that bathroom, she said, "I'm giving you extra of this medicine. It's going to make you puke. I'm going to give you extra as a punishment. Don't you ever scare me." Then she took the bottle and tipped it upside down and let it drain into the cup and filled it quite a bit. Now this was a 8-ounce Dixie cup, and when she was done with it, it went to the 7-ounce mark. When I got to the cup and started drinking, it was thick, and I only got halfway, and I started vomiting very severely. She was out of the room. She already said I had to. She already was very, and if I didn't do what she said, she'd beat me with a ruler. She'd smack me around. So I better take the extra Epicac, or I'm going to get smacked around. Now, what happened? I repeated something another adult said, and I ate a mushroom outside that looked yummy. I didn't have the words about what was going on, but my mother could fantasize and make up stories like no tomorrow. So she ran with it. She wasn't there for it. She wasn't there for what was going on, but my mother was inside while I was playing, and then she just came up with a bunch of fantasies based off of one statement. Zach ate a mushroom. I think he's trying to kill himself. Or no, sorry. I think he said he's committing suicide. Then my mother asked me, well, why I'm saying that word. I said, I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. And then she says, are you trying to kill yourself? I say, no, of course not. The mushroom looked yummy. I didn't know what was going on. Where did you hear that? Is what she should have asked. And I would have said, oh, the adult last week, I tried to eat a mushroom the week before, and the adult told me, what are you trying to do? So that's where I heard that from, but she didn't ask those questions. Instead, she went and added such a fantasy about a 5-year-old, then decided to give him extra medications as a punishment that could cause permanent damage to his body. The key with this, I don't care that she gave me Epicac, even though it's banned in the United States now. Even though Epicac is banned for sale, I really don't care. Now, it was banned for two reasons. One, people were abusing it. Two, people also got a little sick from it. There was some recalled Epicac. People were getting esophagus damage, stomach damage. Yes, overuse or overtaking Epicac can cause stomach damage and throat damage. That's why they took it over the market, because people who were overweight and fat were using Epicac to lose weight. And wouldn't you know, my mother had Epicac in the house all the time and almost never needed it. But yet, she was trying to lose weight. And she thought it was okay to give a 5-year-old to 7-year-old child a lot of it as a punishment. What means my mother probably was giving herself Epicac to try to lose weight like people were doing in the 90s and 2000s and wasn't telling anybody about it. And then when I ate a mushroom and I repeated something another adult told me that I shouldn't have, oh boy, I shouldn't have said that. My mother thought it was a really good idea to give me extra medication instead of just a regular dose, where that would have given the same message. But my mother had such a mental illness that she didn't think things through. So she gave me extra medication as a punishment. And I know how she was thinking, because she was also taking Xanax and Vicodin behind my father's back. My Vicodin and my Xanax. Yes, not her medication, mine. So I bet she was taking Epicac to lose weight. That was a big thing. That's why it's banned. But it's also banned because it causes damage if you take too much, and the esophagus and stomach cause a lot of stomach issues. So, yes, the people who abuse Epicac get stomach issues and esophagus issues. And that's people who want to lose weight. Now, my mother abused me with Epicac. I had no choice in the matter. Now I'm 31 in the Department of Health and Human Services of Rochester. I've spent 7 years going there. I have gone down and down and down and down. I've gone to Social Security and Social Security. But they railroad me. They give me the spins. They give me double talk. They tell me my worker is Tammy, then my worker is Beth, then my worker is Tammy, then my worker is Rachel, then they tell me no, it's not, it's somebody else. Then I go in circles, and then they tell me my case is closed. Then I ask where I reopen it. Then they tell me you got to ask your worker. Then I check where my worker is. They give me a name. I check for the name. Then I go in person. They tell me they're not there. Then I'm told that's not my worker. I don't have that worker. Get a different worker. And they just went through this today. So now I have no worker again. Why? Because just yesterday, just the other day, I was given the name and number of my worker. I called her today, and she told me she is not my worker. She was working with Beth when my case was open. But now she is no longer working on my case. She said I need to call the Department of Health and Human Services if I need a worker through them, and like cash benefits, and I need to call Social Security, and I should go there. But they also want me to live in the woods or a shelter with no wheelchair, no way to work, no way to drive, no way to collect any money. They want me to live on $0 for the rest of my life in the woods. Literally. I can't use a shelter. I can't get a worker, what means I can't get housing. I can't get Section 8 if I can't get a worker, and they continue to play circle games. Now, the reason why they're playing all these games is they talk to my father and his new wife. His new wife likes fucking up my life. That's her joy. I told her what happened with my mother, but I told her, you're not going to know this. I said, you married my father after my mother died. You were her best friend, but you never ever saw how she acted at home. You never got to see the drugs in the cabinet. My father and me saw her get caught for the Vicodin. I saw her get caught for the Xanax. I heard her admit to the alcohol, and I know I didn't take that one. I know I did in my lifetime. Yes, I have taken booze from my father and hid it. But that was only after my mother was already trying to use me as an excuse. That was way after. My mother was already blaming lots of shit on me. She was doing that even when I was 7. She loved blaming her shit on other people. That was my mother for you. But when I opened up and said, I need my father to help me clean up some of his mess. I don't want any money. I don't want any housing. All I need is for my father to be honest about some of the stuff that went on with my mother because my medical file is not correct and I need treatment for a neurological disorder. I'm also going to need Social Security because you messed it up, Dad. And this is how you know you messed it up. You also made this mistake and this mistake. I need that undone. Once when you get it undone, I can do this and this. I talked to Alice very nicely and I asked her to pass that on. For 2 years, I tried working with them, but they got more and more violent. Alice got more and more estranged. She asked for people's numbers, and then those people would act strange. Then she would ask for more personal information, and then she would act more strange. She was burning my bridges on purpose. I was telling my father and them about something that was real, something really bad that happened to me, something my father knows is real, something my brother Tim knows is real, something their grandson complained about. I mean, not even kidding, their own grandson Seth came up to me, came up to my father, came up to his own father, and cried during childhood, and hates this family, or had times where he did hate this family because of this craziness in it, because of my mother just driving everybody nuts. Yes, my own nephew, my own father's grandson cried because I was getting beat with the ruler, I was on drugs, and so many things were out of order, so much so that he was afraid to visit any more with that crazy woman there. We used to laugh at how crazy, violent, and hurtful she was. Not only that, my nephew learned that she's so crazy that he can use that to get me hurt. All he had to do was say, Zach, and she would come in and start beating me. That's it. Out of the middle of the night, like if I was quiet and he wanted to play a joke, he could say, Zach, Zach, Jew, Zach. And then my mother would come out and start slapping me around. Now, if we were laughing about it, no. And my nephew never got me slapped around because he would know when to stop. My nephew was a good person. But a lot of people knew that my mother would get angry, start screaming at me. And if I talked back to her at all, I would get slapped around or my medication would go up because my mother would make up a fantasy constantly. All these new fantasies, starting with my swimming medal at age 7, but I could go over lots of them. But now, at the age of 31, I ask my family for the last 2 years, as well as I obviously mentioned this to my father during my whole childhood, from the age of 5 all the way to 19 until my mother passed away. I asked for help and help and help and help and help and help and help at the doctors from my father, at the doctors from my mother, at the doctors, teachers, father, mother, doctors, teachers, father, mother, staff, father, mother, teacher, staff, father, mother, teacher. I asked for help with my health and what my mother was doing. But every single time I was trafficked around, moving to Texas. So go from Westford, Massachusetts to El Paso, Texas. Move to El Paso, Texas to a top cabin in the mountain of New Mexico where there's no supervision. Then have no education up there and move me all the way to Maine then move me from Maine to another place in Maine, then move me from that place in Maine to Massachusetts, then move me from that place in Massachusetts to another place in Massachusetts, and keep me sheltered the whole time. Make sure that no outside influences ever help me. Make sure they're always really underfunded. Make sure that they got 20 kids to watch. They don't got time for me. Make sure that they're sitting in with the psychiatrist. Make sure to move me around if things get too complacent. If any of these psychiatrists or teachers or anybody calls my mother at home, she just moves me around and then tells everybody that that teacher's crazy, that psychiatrist is crazy, that doctor doesn't know what they're talking about, that doctor doesn't know what they're talking about, that teacher doesn't know what they're talking about. Zach is just saying fantasy. Zach doesn't know what he's talking about. Zach doesn't know. No, no, no. He really has a problem with his biological mother. It's attachment disorder. No, no, no. He's not scared because I hit him with a ruler. No, no, no. He's not scared that I'm going to smack him around. No, no, no. He's not having side effects from the pills I'm giving him. No, no, no. He doesn't care that I gave him a full bottle of Epicac. No, no, no. He's fine with the overdose and losing his sight. No, no, no. That has nothing to do with why he doesn't like me. It has to do with all this mental illnesses I'm making up. Yes, that was my impression of my mother. So, now I'm 31. You think I'm on Social Security? You think I'm holding a job? Well, I've tried. I get injured. Nobody in my condition is supposed to be working. And the state has drained me. They have used me up. And on top of that, I have a landlord that is so unwilling to maintain his apartment that he allows waterfalls and mold to get his tenants sick. Yes, if you want to rent this apartment, when we moved in, there was water coming in. We brought it up to the landlord, and he said he would fix it when he had time. So, did he? No, he just caulked the outside of the building. That's it. He caulked the outside of the building. I literally had maintenance on a ladder, and I got told that this is all fixed. I told them there's no way for you to fix this. You have to replace the wooden frame. But no, they don't want to replace the mold because then they would have to report the mold. No, they want to do that when we move out after we're completely useless to society because a landlord poisoned us. Yes, I'm getting poisoned by a landlord. Not only do we have mold on 5 of our windows, we have 2 gaping holes where water has been allowed to seep into the walls, into the apartment for 7 years. 7 years, water has been coming in. And yes, the landlord and the maintenance and everybody knows about it. Code enforcement, attorneys, the state of New Hampshire, the EECA or the EPA or whatever. Everybody. We've called everybody in the 7 years. We brought down pictures, videos. We got videos of black mold holes where you can see big chunks of mold and gaping water dripping down. And then you have another one where you can see waterfalls coming in at an angle that's really big. And then you have another one. And then you got people passing out. You got elderly people getting mold spreading throughout their body. And literally people losing their jobs and incomes, all because this landlord wants to continue renting this out. Now, how does the landlord rent this out? With an illegally dumped septic tank in the back, septic leaking into the water, no fire escape, it means it's not up to code. The windows are leaking water into these people's apartments. People are dying and getting sick. People are getting put on oxygen tanks. People are getting diagnosed with asthma, heart attacks, all this different stuff. So with all this going on, how the fuck does he get away with it? Well, Rochester has been giving him a free pass with one condition. Don't rent the children. What he does, he allows them on weekends. As long as he doesn't rent the children, Rochester has given him a free pass to kill and poison as many people as he can. As long as he gets us out, moves somebody else in, and hides it from that guy, then he gets to do it. And he gets to do it over and over and over and over. But see, he's been doing this for over 15 years. There's an illegally dumped septic tank in the back, and Rochester's been getting complaints about this moldy hole in the living room in my apartment for over 7 years. Because when I moved in, there was a waterfall coming into this apartment. And the mold was so bad that it was at least already 5 years old. So this window's been rotting out for at least 15, 20 years with many, many, many tenants reporting it. Many tenants bringing this to code enforcement, I'm sure. But they need an attorney because Rochester has a deal with the landlord, and that's what people don't get. Rochester doesn't have a lot of money. They don't want to put up tenants. They don't want to give us money. And they also know that we're poor and we probably can't afford an attorney. So they knew that this place was a health hazard and would get the next tenant sick. The landlord knew it. He tries to say it's dirt, but you obviously know it's not dirt. That's just his word to try to get more time. Like right after we're done reporting that this is toxic and we're getting wicked sick from it, he'll rent this out and still say there's nothing wrong with it. Even though there's black water that comes out of our pipes because there's sewage leaking into our groundwater. Yes, we have groundwater. We have an illegally dumped septic tank in the back, and this septic tank leaks from time to time, and he has groundwater with black sewage coming out of our pipes. That's what we take a shower with, black sewage water. I don't know how often it turns black, but it seems like every 6 months we get black water. And it's usually right before he gets an inspection because he clears the lines. He tries to get all that black shit out at once. So that way the inspector doesn't see what's going on. Same thing with the lights in the hallway. The lights in the hallway are always black. You fall down the stairs. The other day I heard an old man, oh! And all I could say is, oh, there's another one. And when I looked, yep, all the lights are out. You can't see where you're stepping. You can't see your own hand in the face. But the inspector was on his way, so they threw another light bulb in. The inspector, once when he comes and he gets a passed grade, then he'll pull the light bulb back out. On top of that, we have waterfalls coming in, mold that's poisonous, and 2 bedrooms boarded up for bed bugs for 3 years. Now, we've already paid him. We've already showed him a bad bagged one. We've already paid him. We've already given him samples. He's already hired the bug guy to come in, and we still got them. Literally a year later, we're still getting crawling all over us. So we tell them, no, it didn't. They're here. Did you do upstairs too? Because they had them. No, I didn't. Oh, so you haven't done the whole building at once. You just keep on passing it back and forth. Oh, I see. So you got to do the whole building at once, but he's not doing that. Either way, I don't care. I want these bugs out of my house. I'm paying you good money, expensive money. I'm getting injured to go to work. I'm waiting on Social Security. I'm playing games with everybody. I'm getting hurt on the side of the road. I just got out of the emergency room and got stitched up because I had a seizure. And I'm literally about to go and fall down tomorrow all the way. I'm about to get bloodied up, have seizures on the side of the road just to try to get an apple and a sandwich and maybe $10. I mean, doing that is not good. And if I go back to work now, when they're going to ask me to go back to work, I'll have to do it because you aren't working with me, the landlord, after you caused all these issues, and I'm having worsening seizures thanks to your lack of maintenance for the building. But not only that, I'm living in a health hazard that would kill anybody. Anybody comes into this apartment like I did, like it is now, like it was when I came in, with those gaping holes, with the mold here, even if they cover it up and try to hide they've let so much water into the building now. I begged and begged and begged for them to clean it, that the mold is all in the walls, the beams. They'll just cover it up and somebody will still get sick. They'll die because they won't know what's going on. And when you get sick, you lose more money. It's harder to work if you can't breathe. You kind of need to be able to breathe and eat to work. So if you can't eat, if you can't breathe, and then you're not allowed to make money. And if you're not allowed to make money, you can't move. And then when I go to the department, code enforcement, all these places, there's stuff that can be done, but they're doing loop-de-loop games to try to avoid spending money after the big spend on COVID. So the town decided to drop all these people dropped all these money on people that weren't even disabled, they were just people who wanted to sit on their ass and play video games all day. Meanwhile, people like me who kept commerce going while disabled, while getting injured, while catching the flu, getting denied everything, while I keep everything going for the town, What? What, you're going to play with me? You're going to fuck with me? And they think what? I'm going to move to another town? Do they think that I'm going to forgive them and just become this guy who lives in the woods? Do they think I'm going to be able to walk into their shelter and walk around all day like these other homeless people who literally can move their bodies? No. I have a disability where I can't move. That is, if you want me to move around all day, I'm going to need a wheelchair to sit. That is the reality of what is wrong with me. But instead, you want me to just die in the woods, right? You want me to be killed off. Well, when you leave me to die, and the freezing night comes, and I'm about to die, and I'm having seizure after seizure, and 5 emergency visits, and that's happening. That's not what's going to happen. I'm going to lose my mind, and lots of people are going to get fucked up. Why? Because I'm going to be dead. And if I'm going to be dead, I'm going to make a scene. And I'm going to make sure to write plenty of documents on the way out. I'm going to make sure to make this public. I'll go to fucking die right in front of the city hall with a frickin' bunch of news fucking people there. I will literally die right in front of it. I will record me on fucking Facebook and TikTok, literally dead as I die in the woods, as I literally play my secret recordings of all the shit I have of proof on these people who are fucking with me and denying me for 25 years. Yes, I've compiled quite a bit of proof that I do not share until my death. Yes, there's some stuff I can share openly. Then there's other stuff I share on a private death CD, SIM card, different types of SIM cards I've carried around for years. Use different recording devices. I even have one that automatically turns on when people talk to me that can be kept in the wallet. It's for college. It just has an automatic voice activation. It's supposed to read my voice. But if people come over rudely and interrupt me when I'm just doing my own deal, then it will pick them up as well. Now, it doesn't pick up phones, though. That's the weird part about that one. Didn't pick up phones really well. But then I have another one that I just got that I keep as an organizer, and that one does pick up phones, but I have to ask for permission to use that one. So I have a bunch of them, and boy, the illegal shit that I'm catching. I've caught the Department of Health and Human Services discriminating, literally discriminating, avoiding giving services because of that discrimination. I've also caught the doctors doing the same. They're discriminating against me because my mother was crazy. I'm literally, these are my illnesses. I'm sharing my illnesses so they can be established. Until we get them established, there's nothing more I can do. I'm just facing death. There's certain things that we need to move on with, and then you don't move on if the doctors aren't working with you. That's not how it works. See, the doctors want me to just go on drugs. That's what they want. They just want lots of drugs. But that's not going to help me with seizures or my leg bouncing around or the fact I can't walk or my kidneys failing or a fall in the road. That's not going to help with it. We've proven that. The only med that helps with that is epilepsy medications and Ativan we found. And those I'm willing to go on. Anything that will help my nervous system, I'm willing to try. But the psychiatrists want me on stuff like Thorazine and Seroquel and Trazodone for sleep. Then they want to give me some weird cocktails I never heard of that might be for anything to put me out during the day. And then they want me to be passed out on the sidewalk while a cop arrests me for being on a bench and I can't really move my body. Yes, that happened many times. I was brought in by police and put in the police car several times, all because I was on medication and drowsy. Luckily, I had a clean urine, and the police officer believed me when I said, I have a clean urine. Here's the prescriptions I'm on. I swear to God, these prescriptions are making me drowsy. So this is how they set up the homeless. First, they drug the shit out of them. They get drowsy and can't really move their bodies. Then a police officer arrests them for being in a public area, and then you're just in jail for trespassing in a public area, not keeping it moving. You got to keep it moving. You got to keep it moving if you're homeless. If you don't keep it moving, you're arrested. Keep it moving. Keep it moving, the cops will say. Keep it moving. You got money in your pocket? No, keep it moving. Yeah, you better keep it moving. Oh, you got to have money in your pocket to be a patron. You're trespassing. Sorry. I should have kept it moving. So, if you are heavily medicated with new drugs you never heard of that are causing severe side effects, that could be a danger if you don't have a place to stay. You have to have a place to stay before doctors can experiment with your drugs. Because if you're staying out in the woods or out on a bench, you have to be able to keep it moving all the time. You can only stay in one spot for 15 minutes, and you have to sleep in the woods where it takes longer for the police to arrest you. And once when the police find you in the woods, they'll keep bothering you until you find another spot and another spot. And it's the only way you're allowed to sleep. You're not allowed to sleep if you're homeless. It's illegal. I'm not kidding. If you're homeless, tell me one place it's legal for you to sleep. If a shelter does not allow you to stay there because you have a disability or the hospital released you with Ativan in your system and they did not give you paperwork, or if you're on Suboxone and the doctor has not written you any special paperwork for that shelter, you have to wait a week to go to the Suboxone clinic and get that paperwork. So you're out for a week. Or if you're at the hospital, it could take a month when they release you. So let's say 30 days you're out. Or if you had a shelter like 119 Winter Street, Lawrence, they have a rule 30 days in, 90 days out. So it doesn't get overcrowded because there's only 26 beds. They only allow you to stay there 30 days in. Came to 90 days total, so 60 days out. Yes, 30 days every 3 months. That's how it works. Well, that's not that great. So, how do you live during winter during those 60 days? Especially with doctors over medicating you. That's a big problem that I have faced my whole life. Some doctors want to cause damage to me and profit off of it, while other doctors want to help me, and then they decide I'm too, that the medication and what my mother did is too confusing, so let's pass him off and let's pass him down the line. So I get a lot of these issues, but I do not expect to be discriminated against or have so many problems with the Department of Health and Human Services. It's very clear they're trying to money save and push things out. They're really, because, like, for one example, I was supposed to get cash benefits. I was ready for the phone call. They had like 5 different steps. They said, show up here, show up here, show up there, answer this phone call, fill out this paper with us here, then answer this phone call. So I made the appointment phone call at the end. I did all of that. We got it done. Beth said that she helped me file some of the paperwork, so we're good on the paperwork. Because I have trouble with paperwork, and I don't understand what they're asking me, so I can't give an appropriate answer. So the paperwork usually isn't done correctly if I don't have some assistance. And also my hand shakes while I try to write if it becomes too lengthy. That for short answers, I do okay, but I need to understand the question. On longer bullshit, like for paragraphs of explaining something that's really hard to explain because of what they're asking me, I might not keep my hands shake, and I have to spend days to make one letter, days and days and days. And I don't get always help with it. I'm usually the one doing the writing because the people I help can't help me. The people I go around and help are in severe need. So those people, I help them for my Christian duty. And it's a different type of help than what I need for help. So I'm able to do it. And the type of work I'm doing for myself is all my time. I only give up the time where I'm done for the day. And that's usually like my roommate is 84, colostomy bag, heart problems, getting him services and getting people to give him his human rights is more difficult. So that's something that's really helpful. But me and my plan, that's how I also know that these workers aren't really doing anything. I have spent my whole life with the Department of Health and Human Services. Don't get that wrong. I've had a DMH worker, and I've been part of the health. I was owned by them, the state of Massachusetts, until my mother decided to traffic me to Texas. So I know all about how these programs work. And what they're doing right now is trying to save money by dodging me, giving me false information, discriminating against me, putting words in my mouth, filing paperwork that never was supposed to be filed that way, so it's incorrect and has to be refiled, filing paperwork at the wrong time, so I have to wait 6 months to reapply, not giving me callbacks, not getting my messages, not taking my calls, not being my worker, switching worker, switching worker, switching worker, switching worker, confusing me, giving me false information on purpose. That way I can't get an answer. So that way when I ask a question like, so who's my worker? Oh, you don't have one. Okay. So how do I apply for one? Well, you do have one. I do have one, but you just said I don't have one. Well, you do have a worker. So I don't, how do I, who is, or how do I get a worker again at the Department of Health and Human Services? Down at the building I've been going to where Beth was my worker. I saw her. I need somebody to help me. So tell me, where do I go and where do I apply to get some help with Social Security? Because everybody told me that they do get help. This is not any different than anybody else. There are agencies around here that will help me with paperwork. So, where the fuck are they? Who are they? Oh, well, we don't know. You don't know. Okay, so who's a worker here I can speak with? Because I'm going to need a worker here. Well, you already have one. Here's the phone. Here's the information. Okay, so it's Nancy. Oh, I called Nancy. Oh, nope, nope. We closed your case a while. I'm not your worker. Okay, so I called the other one. No, no, I'm not your worker either. Okay, Tammy. Oh, I'm not a worker either. Well, then how the fuck does David have a worker? And I don't know who the fuck my name of my worker is. First I have Beth. Then I have Tammy. Then I have Nancy. And now nobody seems to know who the fuck is working with me, how the fuck I apply paperwork. And I literally, if you really want to check my dead body when I die. Check for all those secret things I told you about and hear how fucked up these people are. Because like I said, I travel with something in my shoe that literally is only supposed to turn on when I talk. So it's literally just for protection if somebody tries to mug me or I die. And I also have a red ankle bracelet that is has emergency ambulance paperwork. I also did have an emergency 911 ambulance that was great. That was a plan I made to try to make sure I don't die and I could keep living. But my insurance doesn't want me to get an ambulance anymore through a bracelet on my ankle. They said they no longer would cover it. They don't cover it. A bunch of bullshit. Bunch of bullshit. I checked with somebody else and they still are covered for it on the same insurance as me. So they just decided to cancel it right after my father and his wife said that this is all a fantasy, all of it. I don't care. They haven't even listened. They just said all of it. Everything. Everything that Zach says out of his mouth is a lie. It's all a fantasy. Don't believe him. And then, of course, my doctors and the people that are helping me drop out because this is very hard to understand and they don't want to do the hard work necessary to get me better. They want me to just magically get better. So if they listen to my father, they can just drop me on my head and I'll get better, right? No, I'll get more hurt and then I die because they've already done that. I've been dropped on my head by different departments to test me out multiple times. And every single time it shows something's wrong with me. They just don't know what. Well, how about listening to the guy right here that's lived this life? How about not listen to an asshole that knows nothing about my life or nothing about my mother? Nothing about that home life. Nothing about her bad side. She only got to go drinking and partying with my mother. She was there during the fun times. She was her best friend drinking buddy. Me, I lived through the darkness of my mother's darkest personality traits. I was there when my mother was beating me with a ruler because she had too much to drink and she made up a delusion. I was there when my mother gave me extra medication. I was there when my mother gave me an overdose. I was there when my mother was making up crazy stories. I was there when my mother was blaming me for her own drinking. And all this went onto my medical record, by the way. So when my mother says my son is a serial killer that likes to hurt animals, That got put on my permanent record, my medical record. My mother used to make up stories like that. You know how hurtful that is? Meanwhile, I am working as a teacher's aide for special needs children after I love animals and want to work at a veterinarian, after I love animals more than I love people, after I was in New Mexico going around trying to catch lizards, and I was always a lover of animals. But why did my mother do this? Because I did a science experiment. I thought slug slime was fireproof, so I was going to do the scientific method. I took a match and some slug slime and I put them together and then put it out. The slug was fine, looked fine, and that was it. So I told my father about it, and he said the slug probably died. I flicked it off the rock. You flicked it? You could have heard it. You could have heard it flicking it that far. How dare you flick it that far? Even though I don't say that. I just say, oh, was it alive or dead? He goes, I don't know. He has no idea. Nobody has any idea because I didn't get the finish. Anyways, so was I trying to hurt this slug? No. I was pretty sure that this slug slime would protect it, and I was thinking about making a fire extinguisher, or at the time, because I was only a kid, a jacket out of slug slime. Yeah, I know it sounds pretty funny, right? But this is how science experiments started. I was watching some science shows. They showed me how Rome used to think that slugs were born out of the ashes of fire because the slugs would come out of the ashes of a fireplace or out of a campfire. So they assumed that a slug was born in fire. So I thought that must mean they're fireproof and they produce fireproof slime. Now, I explained all this the best I could at the age of 10 years, 12 years old, around that. I think I was 12. But my mother started telling doctors that I must be hurting animals. I must be turning into a serial killer. I have all this depression. I'm always tired, then I'm up, then I'm tired, then I'm up. You know, I give him pills and then he gets wicked tired. And then I give him more pills and he gets more tired. But then those pills wear off and he goes up and gets hyper. And then I give him more pills and he knocks the hell out for the bed. Then the next morning I give him pills and he gets kind of a little tired. Then I give him more pills and he gets super tired. Then those pills wear off and he ends up getting way hyper. And then I give him a lot of pills and then he knocks out like a light. So I think he's bipolar, my mother says. You know what that is? Too many pills. I'm hyper. That's it. I have ADHD. That's one of my disorders. I'm hyper all the time and I can't concentrate. I have PTSD from getting abused all the time, still to this day. Yes, I have PTSD just from a couple months ago or a few months ago from the doctors having me crawl while injured across traffic to get a CT scan without giving me any cane, wheelchair, nothing. 3 times, in fact, because they wanted to play with me. They had me do this the CT scan 3 times. I had to go. I crawled across traffic the first time, only a little. I kind of stood, fell, crawled, stood for. Then, weeks later, they still didn't get it. They said I would have to redo it because nobody got it. So then I crawled across traffic a second time, but this time I actually was on the ground for half the road. For half the road, I was on the ground on my knees and hands because I was in so much pain that I couldn't stand up. And this was on 108, one of the busiest roads, but there's no other way to get to the hospital to do this test. No other way. There's no other way. When I called the ride service, that requires people doing their jobs once again. But when I try to get the insurance to pay for it, when I try to get any benefits, people start fucking up with me. Why? Because my mother and my father spent 15 years making up stories, and now that I'm talking about it, my father's new wife is doing everything she can to bury it. So I will continue getting hurt. Now back to my illnesses, and then I'm going to stop this because it's a long one. I have ADHD. I have PTSD. I have anxiety. Now, 2 of those are thanks to my mother and father only. I never felt them until I was about 10 years old getting beat with rulers. and I could feel them as soon as the overdose hit me. I felt scared to even eat after that. I felt scared more so than even even the double medication in the orphanage. But that was only two medications. That's only a double dose of Ritalin and maybe a Flintstones vitamin. That's all they accidentally double dosed me with. My mother gave me way more than double doses at times. Sometimes it was triple, quattro doses, or who knows what dosage, or knock me out to my feet doses, or make me drool on myself doses. Shit like that. So, with that going on, anxiety, PTSD, then stomach issues, esophagus issues. Then, because of my mother giving me an overdose, I started to exhibit neurological problems like shakes, twitches, bumping into things, tics. There was many red flags that clearly said your son is having a problem with his nervous system. But instead, my mother kept on trying to hide her problem, hide because I already spoke up about it. I spoke up at the doctor's office. My mother buried it and moved me to Texas. So I have a neurological disorder that still needs further diagnosing. As far as all that other, depression and bipolar and mental and storytelling and lying and attachment disorder, that's all bullshit that my mother made up. That is nothing to do with me. The doctors will try to suck it all up. They love sucking it up like a straw. But if you ask me to give you the information it's based off of, it's very clear. Like the bipolar, some doctors say yes, some doctors say no, some doctors say yes, some doctors say no, and here's why. My mother would give me downers, I would go down. My mother would give me depressants, and sometimes I got depressed because she was giving me a lot of these, like three downers at once: trazodone, Seroquel, Thorazine. And then don't forget the Lamictal added on with the risperidone. That was one combo that really kicked my ass that my mother wanted me on. She brainwashed me into thinking I needed these drugs, these pills from these doctors. On top of this, she tried to convince me that I had stuff wrong with me that I really didn't. Like, for instance, my mother tried, it didn't work for this one. It worked for a lot of it, but the doctors would not buy that I was schizophrenic. But that didn't stop my mother from trying. My mother tried to get me on more and more and more schizophrenic medication, like Xana, no, Zyprexa. And the reason for it was unbased. That's why the doctor wouldn't do it. There's no reason for it. Like my mother once came over while I was playing action figure. I was just going, "Voo, get in the plane." Putting a gun in their hand, the big giant GI Joes, just playing like every other kid I've ever seen play with action figures. Like a movie set, making the action figures, boom, boom, boom. Oh, jump off the bridge. Just two action figures in your hands, a kid playing with it on the carpet. My mother comes over and tries to convince me that me making the action figure talk, where I go, do, 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 means I'm schizophrenic. It means that I am hearing voices because I can hear the action figures' voices. I said, no, no, no. I'm making that like a movie, like a show. I don't hear no voices. The only voice I hear is my own. I'm trying to pick a movie script or make a show. My mother goes, no, no, no. I want you on schizophrenic medication. No, I want you right now to agree to telling the doctor that you hear voices and that you need medication. I want you to say yes. And I said, Mom, no, I can't do that. I have a schizophrenic kid across the hall. I know what he's like. I don't hear any voices like him. Why are you doing this? At this point, she says, Zach, I need. She's getting very angry. So I get up from the action figures and I try to walk away. That's what everybody says, walk away, right? No, my mother's following me. She's following me around the house, talking and screaming at me to believe her that there's a mental illness made up that she wants to make up. Hey, Zach, let me drug you. Hey, Zach, let me drug you. Hey, Zach, let me drug you. Hey, Zach, let me get you medications. Let me hurt your body, please. Let me hurt your body. That's what she was trying to do. But at the time, I was hearing just what she was saying. I didn't know that back then. When my mother was doing these crazy things, I did no clue what it meant. There was no adults. There was only my father and my mother, and my father was always someplace else, either drinking, at work. He was never present for these crazy stuff. And if he was, because sometimes my father did see this craziness, he tried to leave. Now, that didn't work that day. She tried to convince me that I was schizophrenic, but it didn't work because she was full of shit. She tried to convince the doctors that, but she was full of shit. She tried to convince them about a bunch of illnesses, and they bought it. And still to this day, I have to suffer. So tell me, do I have to live in my mother's fantasy for the rest of my life, not able to getting a job? I can't use a shelter. I can't drive a car. How am I supposed to live? And now the Department of Health and Human Services is trying to kick me out of Rochester or thinking that I have some ability to move. I don't. I gave my body and time to Rochester. I now have given 7 years, the last 7 years I had of strength to keep commerce going during COVID. And as of a couple months ago, I was still getting injured while doing it, all because they told me I had to. They told me I wasn't able to do anything. I would have to wait. You have to wait 6 months to get this paperwork finished. Then you have to wait 6 months to get this paperwork finished. Now we got a different worker for you. Oh, you can't find your worker? Wait a couple months. We'll give you one. Okay, now you got a new worker. Oh, we got to redo the paperwork. Oh, wait a couple more months. Wait a couple more months. They're trying to push out helping me until I'm already dead. The doctors do the same thing. Social Security does the same thing. The courts do that. Like if you try to sue the government and you're in your 80, like if you're 85 years old and you try to sue the government because they beat on you, they'll just push it out until you're dead. They can push out a lawsuit for years. They can push out stuff like this by fucking up paperwork repeatedly on purpose until you're just dead and you never get your rights. They're doing this all the fucking time. I'm going to be dead before I get any rights. But the one thing is, I'm not going to sit back. I'm going to stay in Rochester until either I'm treated like a human being and I start seeing people stop this bullshit. Because I know bullshit when I see it. If they're going to continue acting like fools and people who want to hurt others who are disabled like me, if they think that that is appropriate to deny somebody their human and civil rights that are clearly stated in the Constitution, that are clearly stated for every man and woman to follow, if they think that that's okay to violate their own guidelines and their own what they say in their booklet, if they want to play games and cause distress and hurt in another human being, and they think I'm going to sue, I'm not. When it comes to the day that I die in the woods, I'm going to take it like any other American took it. You want to kill me? You're coming after me? You want me to, what, live up a tree? You want to take away my ability to live in a shelter? I mean, if I go in the shelter, tell me, what are they going to do for me when I have a seizure in the tub? What are you going to let them tell me that I need hot water? No. I'm going to have to take a cold shower down in the basement. When I have a seizure, they're not going to let me back in. When I can't move on time, when it takes me an hour of stretching to get out of a cot, or if I end up falling in the morning and I can't get up off the floor and they don't let me back in because I don't have paperwork, you think I'm just going to leave? You think I'm going to take it sitting down? You think I'm going to live in the woods like these other homeless people? No, I didn't make any bad choices. I'm not a drug addict. I'm a hard worker. I paid my debt. I have no debt. My only debt is being born. At the age of 5, I was just born. At the age of 15, my only debt is I was born. But people kept on getting their greedy hands in my body. Don't forget that. Everybody has got their greedy hands in my body. You got the landlord right now, destroying my health. I am breathing in black mold spores, gallons of it. It is everywhere. I've shown videos, pictures. I got a whole portfolio. And I am literally so sick in my lungs, chest, everywhere. And this is a new thing. This is only in the last 7 years. I got 25 years of seizures. So combine a neurological disorder with black mold inhalation, water coming in your building, bites and allergic reactions. That's not a good combo. Then add a mother poisoning you for 15 years and doctors having their way with you. Yes, doctors were allowed to have their way with my body. If they wanted to double dose me or experiment on me, they had full permission to do so. And it did. All they needed was one complaint and they were able to double dose me. Yes, my roommate wanted to get me into trouble on purpose, all because he was in trouble for talking about drugs. He talked about cocaine and I said, "What do you want some? What the hell's wrong with you?" So he was mad that I said that. So he went out in the hallway, told a staff member, "What do you think the state hospital did?" They held me down and gave me all my medications twice in the same hour. Literally, I just got up in line, took all my meds, a lot of them. Very, very dangerous meds I'm already having severe side effects from. Then I go back to my room. I'm talking to my roommate. They give us a candy cane. I start eating the candy cane. The roommate starts talking shit. I tell him, "Stop talking shit. What do you want some of that shit? What's wrong with you?" Then he gets mad because I embarrass him and he goes out into the hallway. He tells staff member a story to try to get back at me. The story must have been, "Zach didn't take his meds. I saw it," or some bullshit like that. At this point, the staff members hold me down. First, they ask me, "Did I take my meds?" I say, "Sure, I did. Yes, I did." She goes, "Well, we'll see about that." She calls over a nurse and says, "Give him his meds again." I say, "You're going to get me hurt. You know that's a bitch, right? You're going to get me hurt." Then they start holding me on the ground and forcing needles and double doses of medication into me. Now, I am only 12 years old. 12 years old. And what did I do to deserve getting needles shoved into me and drooling all day long with a double dose of drugs and having children and people try to rape me and having all this crazy shit? Because this is the same Low General at the age of 1920 where they allowed another kid to try to rape me multiple times, and there was other kids in the child ones that were next door that used to try to do stupid stuff like that, get naked, hide in the closet, all different types of crazy shit. Luckily, I never got raped as a child in those places. Anyways, so with all this going on, what did I do to deserve a 12-year-old doing that, huh? Nothing. My mother was making up fantasies. See, I never understood this as a child. But I know as an adult that my nephew would have never survived with my mother. Why? Okay, one of my nephews took a lighter to school. In my house, you get beaten, abused, medicated, and sent to a hospital for that. My nephew would have never recovered from the loss of school, his mother hitting him. He would have never, Javier would have never been a normal person. Yes, I have a nephew that did a lot of the same stuff I did as a child. And I've seen lots of other children do these things. They're actually quite common. I also have friends that are parents and they deal with these things on a regular basis. Your kid stealing your silver dollars for cigarettes because he's 16 and needs cigarettes. I've heard of two people doing that. Me, another kid, and actually, no, I hear about. That's people I know about. But also, I heard about that in my school that a couple kids got in trouble for dimes, nickels, all different types of coins, bringing in and selling them. Yes, there was. So, kids needing cigarettes and using coins or penny jars or whatever for it, that's a bad thing. I deserve to be learn my lesson. That's it. A smack on the bum, maybe. Maybe you take away something. Maybe you lock me in my room. I knew one parent that had a padlock on the door. You got to go to your room, and then your father puts a padlock on the door, and you're not allowed to come out. Now, they used to take out stuff out of the room too, so you're not allowed to have your toys. You get locked in a room for however long. But all these are better than beating your kid with a metal or hard plastic ruler with a sharp edge that could cause a mark. On top of this, grabbing medications that aren't supposed to be given to a child that young and messing with them like you're the doctor. Yes, my mother was messing around with my medications as well. Now I'm 31. I just came up here from all that shit going on. I had an addiction as well from the age of 19 to about 23, 24. I had an addiction. I wasn't dealing with this, I was running from it. I did not want to deal with what my mother and father did to me, the state, the pharmaceutical companies. I just couldn't handle it. Now I'm handling it. I'm talking about it. I'm sharing it. I'm trying to deal with it. You know, I just got poisoned for 15 years. I have a health record. I was on, my parents committed Social Security fraud and they used me to get it. This is a big issue. So I'm trying to speak up with my father and the people that need to be spoken up. But if they're not going to handle it, then I can take everybody down with me as well. But I have rights. Oh, I'm not looking for any money. I'm not looking to be in a mansion. I'm not looking to be magically healed. I only want to be treated like every human being is treated. I just don't want to be discriminated against to the level that I have to die because of somebody else wanting to do something. Like, for instance, everybody else can use a shelter, right? That's sober. I'm sober. Somebody else is sober and disabled. I'm sober and disabled. Somebody else is sober and disabled. We both can use a shelter, right? Not right. I can't use a shelter because of my father, my mother, their Department of Health and Human Services, the pharmaceutical companies, and a lack of documenting, reporting, and listening to their patients. So I still can't use a shelter without their throwing me out for being disabled. That's it. I am disabled in a way that's not documented, so shelters will not accept me until they're documented. And they'll come up with more bullshit like I'm stubborn or they don't know what's going on or he has some medical issue or he needs to go to the emergency room or all these things. I've been sent to the emergency room for it. That's a good one. The shelter will get the ambulance to pick you up because you can't move. They'll say, well, if you can't move right now, right this minute, then you need an ambulance. And then when you can't finally stretch and you get your ability to walk, they won't let you back in. There's a lot of this going on. So how am I supposed to live? Especially that cold triggers my seizures and I have full blown. I mean, I don't collect Social Security. I collect $0 and everybody tries to steal whatever I do have. They get their little hands and even my own father. He stole my inheritance and he used my Social Security to benefit himself, not me. Yes, he used it to pay for his house while keeping me in a state program where he only visited me 8 days a month, and that's on a good month. Some months they would go on cruises or trips, and then I would just be in there the whole time. So they skipped out even on the 8 days a month sometimes. So you have literally this shit going on. Well, I literally was the only kid in the program that did not have proper clothing. Every other kid was an orphan that got clothing checks. My father got my clothing check in cash. What do you think he did with that money? He put it to his house. He put it to his big, big, big house so he could afford for a big house. Yes. And he used this and he thinks it's okay because he says, well, you lived in it, don't you? No, I don't. If I live in it, then I have a right to come back those other 24 days a month.